Alright then, dancing in the moonlight, Thin Lizzy from Bad Reputation. We are in standard tuning for this tutorial. This one starts with this rather famous bass line. And then the guitars finally come in with those pick scratches there before dropping into the first verse. Now live, the guitar players often played along with Phil, so I'm going to show you what he's doing here. Starting on the second fret of the A string, double hit, drop onto the 5 of the A, another double hit, and then move it into 7. Right? Then we're going to hang on that 7, pick it 2 more times, go off to 5, grab the 7 of the low E, back to the 5 of the A with a double hit, onto the 7 of the A with a double hit. Kind of like that. Right? And back off to 2, back onto 5, double hits, off to 3, and then you're going to pick that 3 2 more times, and then you're going to go off to 2 of the A, and then 5 off to 3 of the low E. Kind of like that, and repeat. And then the guitars come in with those pick scratches there. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down. 7 mutes, right? Just lightly holding the strings here at about the 2nd or 3rd fret. Right? And then we're into the first verse. Lots of little triads that we're using here. We're using basically 4 chords throughout all of this, right? We grab a B chord at one point, but just in the middle of the chorus. And but for all the verses and choruses, we're using these 4 chords. G, D, C, and E minor. And we're starting with this little G triad here, a little D shape at the 7th fret. Top 3 strings. 7, 8, 7, right? So the strumming pattern is down, down, up, up. The second downstroke being a mute, right? And then 2 upstrokes. Then we're going to take that G, move it off to D, 7, 7, 5. Same picking pattern, and then back that up to C. Just exact same chord shape, just back it up 2 spots. Right? Now, these little chord changes here, these 3 chords, we're going to add little fills, little double stop fills in between them, right? That being the first one, right? G, D, C, and then these little double stop fills, 12 and 10 of the B in the high E, backing it up to 10 and 8, then off to 8 and 7, and then back to 10 and 8. Catching the final one on the upstroke. Little mutes between each shift, right? And now we're going to drop into E minor instead of G, right? Same 3 strings, top 3 strings. Right? Then we're going to go off to D, off to C, but now we're going to do it on the D, G, and B string with a bar at the 7th fret, not the top 3 strings. Not that chord, this chord. And then move it off to C, right? So coming out of the E minor, we're going to play on the D, G, and B string, that D off to C. And then another fill. So this fill, 13 and 12 of the B in the high E, backing it up to 12 and 10, backing it up to 10 and 8, and then off to 8 and 7. Finishing on the upstroke, and again, little mutes between each chord change, right? Now back to G, back to D, top 3 strings, C. Now another little fill here, a little double stop fill, 12 and 10, off to 10 and 8 twice. And this one you finish on the downstroke, back into E minor, into D with a bar, and then C with a bar. And then finally into G, leading into the chorus, a full G major bar chord, right? Just the bottom 3 or 4 strings. A quick B, quick D, and then we're going to drop back into G and play the same chords, but in different positions. Right, so that's the chorus coming out of that G that we finished at the very end of the verse. We're going to grab a quick B into D, right into G on the 4 middle strings. So this G chord here is kind of a G over D. We have a full bar on the 4 middle strings at the 7th fret, ring finger on the 9 of the D, middle finger down here on the 8 of the B. Right? It's kind of a G over D. Same picking pattern. And then into a D bar chord on the 4 middle strings and move that off to a C bar chord, right? And then up to G. And then another B into D to start the second half of the chorus. And coming out of that B into D, we're going to go into E minor, just like we did in the verses, right? And then D, and then C, G. Choke it off. 7 more mutes. Leads into the second verse, which is the same as the first, into another chorus, which is the same as the first chorus. Good place right here to recap all of that. So, the first verse, G, top 3 strings. D, C, fill, E minor, D, with a bar, C, another fill, and then repeat. Different fill. A little back and forth one, right? Back into E minor, D, C, and then G, and then D, B. G over D, D, C, G, D to B, E minor, D, more mutes leading into the saxophone solo, which is over the opening bass line. Right, 4 times. Saxophone solo played by John Honeywell from Supertramp, if you didn't know that. Now, great solo by Scott Gorham in this one. Goes a little something like this. That's the solo right there. We're soloing in the key of E minor, using the E minor pentatonic for the most part. We do grab that C note there a couple of times out of the minor scale, but it's 95% minor pentatonic work here. Starting on the 15 of the B string, full step bend, right? You're going to pick that at the top, release it slowly off to 12, right back into another full step bend on that 15, and then do it again. And then the third time you bend that 15, you're going to release it back to the natural note, pick it off to 12, string skip up to the 14 of the D, and then finish with a double hit on the 12 of the G. Right into this. Just 14 off to 12, right into a full step bend on the 14. Quick little release off to 12, right back into another bend on that 14. Right? Into this lick, which is all palm muted. Right there, all going on the 12s and 14s of the D and the G, starting on the 12 of the D. Just 12, 14, down to the 12 of the G, back to the 14 of the D. Roll down to the 14 of the G, off to 12, grab that 14 of the D again, and back to 12. Slide out of it. Right? Kind of like that. So, from the beginning. Right? So we're sliding out of that 12, we're going to slide right back into it. Back it up to 9, back it up to 7. And finish the first half of the solo with that lick. So after sliding back into that 12, off to 9, off to 7, we're going to grab that note that I mentioned, that C note there, 13 fret of the B string, grab it very quickly, and then back off to 9 of the D. I love this section. It's very, very clever. So you come off that 13, off to the 9 of the D and go 9, 10, 12, 14. Right, and that's the first half of the solo. Slide out of that, and then we're into this repeating lick. So we're starting this on the 14 of the G, full step bend, and then string skipping down to the 12 of the high E, right? And then we're going to play this little lick. Classic little lick here, pulling 15 off to 12 of the high E, grabbing the 15 of the B, and then going back to the 12, and then 15 off to 12 of the B, and repeating. And after you repeat it 4 times, coming off that 12 of the B, right, we're going to drop into this. Just pulling off 14 to 12 of the G, grabbing that 14 of the D twice. And then when you come out, coming off that 14 of the D the second time, you're going to pull it off to 12. And then a quick little pull off from 14 to 12 of the A, off to 10 of the A. Right? So that whole little sequence. Into this. Just sliding into 14 of the D, down to 12, back to 14, down to the 14 of the G, off to 12. Right? Down to 15, off to 12 of the B. Just single notes, right? 15 off to 12. Into this to finish the solo. So 15 off to 12, back onto 15. Back to the natural note, little bend, release it back to the natural note, and then back off to 12 again. On to 17 of the high E, full step bend, off to 15, end of solo. And that is how you play the solo to that one. So let's take that from the top, and then we'll be done, because coming out of the solo, we're just back into another chorus, and we already know how to play that. So. And there you go. That is how you play Dancing in the Moonlight by Thin Lizzy. Certainly hope you enjoyed that, found it helpful. If you did, please hit that like button right down there. Maybe drop me a subscribe if you haven't done that already, as that would be very kind and also helpful to my channel. Hope you're well out there in your little guitar corner of the world, wherever that may find you, and we will see you next time. Cheers.